Aloha folks, and welcome to today's video. Today's video is dedicated to Mac. Mac, thank you so much for feedback. Mac's feedback was in regard to our last video in which I was talking about the enslavement of animals for our consumption, inviting in our own enslavement, and whether or not we can assess our own personal daily habits and determine whether or not we are doing anything that's promoting the slavery of others or our own slavery. And Mac wanted to know, well, what about his pet dog? He wasn't even sure how to really respond to my video because he wasn't sure what to do about his dog. And I really appreciate that question. It's great. So it's a multifaceted answer. And one facet that I want to bring up is this is not something that we can change overnight. We have to begin with where we are. My proposal, I'm not implying that we open the barnyard doors, open the fence gates, open our back doors, and literally set all of our pets and livestock free. I don't think that's a good idea. I think we need to take this step by step. I think we need to begin with little changes. And as those little changes become more habitual, they will eventually lead to bigger changes. Choosing the right action, choosing the action that does not involve harming another being or taking away another being's free will. That is what the definition of a right is. A right is a term that most people cannot even define. The US Constitution and Bill of Rights is horrible at defining what a right actually is. A right is best defined in apophatic. A right is best defined in apophatic terms, meaning negative terms. What is a right not? A right is anything you can do that does not involve harming another being. A right is anything you can do that does not steal from another being, particularly their free will of choosing when to die. That's called murder. Their free will of choosing whom to have sex with. That's called rape. We know those things are wrong. Why? Because of what a right is not. A right is not harming another being. A right is not infringing upon another being's free will. Okay? So we have to recognize that we have what we have already, and we're not going to change things overnight. We're not going to make the journey of 10,000 steps in one step. So begin with where you are. Recognize the responsibilities that you have and actually do something about it. Not saying that Mac's not doing anything about it. I love you, Mac. I really appreciate your question. And I'm just rolling with it. Part of what's going on with animals and like dogs and things like that, dogs is a little bit questionable because, at least in the West, we look at dogs more as our partners, whereas in certain Asian countries, they definitely do look at dogs as a calorie source. And I have that heritage in me. And so I recognize that it's almost like it's almost a Stockholm syndrome that's kind of been ingrained in some of these animals. So we have to take it step by step. So, I feel inspired, Mac, to share a story of my other friend. His dog recently passed, and gosh, he was really long loved life. My friend, this was a stray that came to him, Mac. So just because you have a pet dog doesn't mean he's your slave, especially if you can find the joy that I find in my friend James's story. So James's dog came to him out of a crowd of thousands of people, chose him. And whenever James would go out, he said he would come home and he would take his dog Hash Brown. He would let him go out too. He said, well, it's not fair. I'm letting you stay with me. You're stuck inside because human rules won't let you wander around. I got to go out, so you get to go out. And he would get into this habit of every time James would go out, even for a short period, let's say running to the corner store to go get bananas, whatever, he would then take hash brown around the block, and that was their agreement. So it's just an idea that I'm throwing out there. You'll find what works for you. Ask your heart is my best advice. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mac. And thank you as well, James. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful stories about your lifelong relationship with Hash Brown. Hash Brown's lifelong relationship with you. Cheers, guys. I love our animal friends.